The night Ava Carter kissed a stranger despite her cheating boyfriend, she had no idea she was putting her lips on the most dangerous man in Milan. Marco De Luca doesn't do impulse. He doesn't do chaos. But when a furious woman in a red dress grabs him in the middle of a gallery full of Milan's elite and kisses him like her life depends on it, something shifts. Now she can't shake him. He's everywhere, her projects, her thoughts, her dreams. And when his enemies come for her, Ava learns that some mistakes don't just change your life. They rewrite it completely. Stay with me until the end, hit that like button, and drop a comment with your city so I can see how far this story travels. The Galleria d'Arte Moderna was the kind of place where reputations were made and destroyed between glasses of champagne. Ava Carter had spent 3 years working her way into this world. 3 years of networking, portfolio building, and swallowing her opinions when wealthy clients suggested she make their penthouses look more beige. Tonight was supposed to be different. Tonight she was here with David Holbrook, the art dealer who'd promised her connections that could transform her interior design career from struggling freelancer to someone people actually called back. She should have known better. "Ava, darling, you look stunning." Celeste Moreau glided past with her entourage, barely glancing at the emerald dress Ava had bought specifically for this event. "Is that vintage?" "No, it's—" But Celeste was already gone, trailing expensive perfume and dismissal. Ava took a breath and smoothed the fabric over her hips. The dress was new, purchased with money she probably shouldn't have spent, but David had insisted she needed to look the part. "These people can smell desperation," he'd said. "Dress like you've already made it." She scanned the gallery for him now. He'd disappeared 20 minutes ago, promising to introduce her to Alessandro Ferretti, whose firm was renovating half of Milan's historic district. The kind of connection that could change everything. The gallery hummed with conversation in 3 languages. Sculptures cast strange shadows under calculated lighting. A string quartet played something modern and unsettling in the corner. This was Milan's art elite at play. Beautiful people admiring beautiful things while making ugly deals. Ava grabbed another glass of Prosecco from a passing waiter. Her 3rd. Or 4th. She'd lost count. "You look lost." She turned to find a woman about her age, dark hair cut in a severe bob, wearing a white suit that probably cost more than Ava's rent. "Just waiting for someone," Ava said. "Aren't we all?" The woman's smile didn't reach her eyes. "I'm Julia. You're American? That obvious?" "The shoes." Julia glanced down. Comfortable but trying to be elegant, very American. Ava looked at her own heels. Black, simple, purchased because they didn't make her feet bleed. "I'll take that as a compliment." "You shouldn't," Julia sipped her drink. "But I like you anyway. Who are you here with?" "David Holbrook." Something flickered across Julia's face. Amusement? Pity? "Ah, the art dealer. You know him?" "Everyone knows David." Julia's phone buzzed. She glanced at it and her expression shifted. "I have to go. Advice? Find better company." Before Ava could ask what that meant, Julia vanished into the crowd. Ava finished her Prosecco and set the glass on a passing tray. She was being ridiculous. David was networking. That was the whole point of coming to these things. She should do the same instead of lurking by the sculptures like some kind of artistic wallflower. She made her way through the gallery, past abstract paintings that looked like expensive mistakes, past clusters of people discussing things they pretended to understand. The main exhibition hall opened onto a terrace that overlooked the city. She could see lights spreading across Milan like scattered diamonds. That's where she found him. David was on the terrace, pressed against the railing. But he wasn't alone. A blonde in a dress that was more suggestion than fabric had her hands in his hair. David's hands were on her waist, pulling her closer. They were kissing like they'd done it before, like they'd do it again. The Prosecco turned to acid in Ava's stomach. She should leave. Turn around, grab her coat, disappear into the Milan night, and never speak to David Holbrook again. That would be the mature response. But maturity had never gotten her anywhere. Ava pushed through the terrace doors. The night air hit her face, cool and sharp. Several people turned to look. She didn't care. "David." He jerked back from the blonde like he'd been electrocuted. "Ava, this isn't what?" Her voice came out steadier than she felt. "Isn't you shoving your tongue down someone else's throat at an event you invited me to?" The blonde had the decency to look embarrassed. David just looked annoyed. "You're making a scene." "I'm making a scene?" Ava laughed, sharp and bitter. "You brought me here. You told me to buy a new dress. You said tonight was important for my career." "It is important. For both of us." David straightened his jacket. "This is business, Ava. You wouldn't understand." "Business?" She looked at the blonde who was studying her manicure with intense focus. "Does business usually involve that much tongue?" Someone nearby choked on their drink. A few people had stopped pretending not to watch. The terrace was filling with spectators, drawn by the scent of drama like sharks to blood. David's jaw tightened. "You're embarrassing yourself." "No, David, you're embarrassing me. There's a difference." She should stop, walk away, preserve whatever dignity she had left. But 3 glasses of Prosecco and 6 months of ignored red flags had other plans. "You know what? We're done. You and me, whatever this was, finished." David's laugh was cruel. "Ava, sweetheart, we were never really together. You knew what this was." The words hit like a slap. Because part of her had known. She'd ignored the late-night cancellations, the vague explanations, the way he only called when he needed something. She'd convinced herself it was complicated, that successful men like David were just busy. She'd been an idiot. The terrace had gone quiet. Everyone watching, everyone waiting to see what the desperate American girl would do next. Ava's heart hammered against her ribs. Her cheeks burned. David was already turning back to the blonde, dismissing her like she was nothing, like she'd never been anything. Something inside her snapped. She needed to do something bold, something that would wipe that smug expression off David's face and prove she wasn't some pathetic girl crying over a man who'd never deserved her. Her eyes swept the terrace and landed on him. He stood near the edge, slightly apart from the crowd. Tall, dark suit that fit too well to be anything but custom. He was watching the scene unfold with the detached interest of someone observing an interesting piece of performance art. Their eyes met. He didn't look away. Ava didn't think. Thinking was what had gotten her into this mess. She crossed the terrace in 4 strides, grabbed the stranger's lapels, and kissed him. For a split second, he went completely still, surprised. Then his hand came up to the small of her back, steady, controlled, and he kissed her back. It wasn't desperate, it wasn't messy. It was the kind of kiss that made everything else disappear. His mouth was warm and deliberate, and for a moment Ava forgot about David, forgot about the crowd, forgot about everything except the taste of expensive whiskey and the feeling of being held like she mattered. When she pulled back, her heart was racing for entirely different reasons. The stranger looked at her with dark eyes that gave nothing away. "Feeling better?" His voice was low, accented, amused. Ava suddenly realized what she'd done. She'd grabbed a complete stranger at a high-profile art gallery and kissed him in front of Milan's elite. Heat flooded her face. "I'm so sorry. I shouldn't have. No." His thumb brushed her wrist, still caught in his hand. "You shouldn't have, but you did." Behind her, someone was whispering. She heard David's voice, sharp and angry, but couldn't make out the words. The stranger's gaze flicked past her shoulder, then returned to her face. "You should go," he said quietly, "before this gets worse." "I'm sorry," she said again and pulled away. She didn't look at David, didn't look at anyone. She just walked back through the gallery, grabbed her coat from the check, and stepped into the Milan night. The air was cold. Her hands were shaking. She just humiliated herself in front of everyone who mattered in Milan's art and design world. David would tell everyone. By tomorrow, she'd be a joke. Her phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. "You left your clutch. M." Ava stopped walking. How did he have her number? She pulled out her phone, stared at the message. Should she respond? Ignore it? Block the number and pretend this entire nightmare hadn't happened? Before she could decide, another message arrived. "The terrace. I'll wait 10 minutes." She looked back at the gallery. Every instinct screamed at her to keep walking, to go home, to never think about tonight again. But she'd already made every wrong choice possible. What was one more? Ava turned around. Sam. He was still on the terrace, but the crowd had dispersed. The drama was over. People had moved on to the next spectacle, the next scandal. That's how it worked in places like this. He stood with his back to the railing, her small clutch in one hand. Up close, in better light, she could see him properly. Mid-30s, dark hair cut short, strong jaw with a shadow of stubble. He had the kind of face that didn't give anything away. Handsome, but in a way that felt dangerous rather than safe. "You came back," he said. "You have my clutch." "I do." He held it out. "Along with your phone, your keys, and—" He glanced inside. "Exactly 37 euros. You counted my money?" "I was curious about the kind of woman who kisses strangers." Ava snatched the clutch from his hand. "I said I was sorry." "You did." He leaned against the railing, completely relaxed. "But you're not, are you? Sorry, I mean—" She should lie, be polite, thank him, and leave. "No," she said instead. "I'm not sorry. He deserved it." "The art dealer? You know him?" "I know of him. Everyone in Milan does." His eyes were very dark, almost black in the dim light. "He's mediocre at his job and exceptional at making people feel small. You're better off without him." "You don't know me." "True." He straightened and she realized how tall he was. "But I know men like him, and I know you didn't plan that kiss. Which means you're either impulsive or desperate, possibly both." "Wow, thank you for that assessment." "You asked." "I didn't, actually." A smile touched his mouth. Barely there, but real. "No, you didn't." They stood in silence. Music drifted from inside the gallery. Someone laughed, high and artificial. Ava clutched her purse and tried to figure out what she was doing here, talking to a man whose name she didn't even know. "I'm Ava," she said finally. "I know." "How?" "I asked." He pushed off the railing. "I'm Marco." He didn't offer a last name, didn't extend his hand, just watched her with that same unreadable expression. "Thank you for not making that worse than it already was," Ava said. "The kiss. You could have pushed me away, made a scene." "I don't make scenes." "No, I do that apparently." "Yes." Another hint of that smile. "You do." She should go. This conversation was going nowhere, and she'd already embarrassed herself enough for one night. But something kept her rooted to the spot. Maybe it was the way he looked at her, like she was actually interesting instead of just pathetic. "Can I ask you something?" she said. "You can ask." "Why did you kiss me back?" Marco tilted his head slightly, considering. "Because you looked like you needed it." "That's it?" "That's it." It was a terrible answer, patronizing even, but the way he said it didn't feel patronizing. It felt honest. "I should go," Ava said. "You should." But neither of them moved. "Will you be all right?" Marco asked. "Getting home?" "I'll call a car." "Where do you live?" She hesitated. He noticed. "I'm not asking to follow you home," he said dryly. "I'm asking if you're going somewhere safe." "Porta Romana. It's fine." He nodded, pulled out his phone, typed something. 30 seconds later, a black car pulled up to the curb below the terrace. "That's for you," Marco said. Ava stared at the car, then at him. "You just... How did you—" "I made a call." "I can pay for my own ride." "I'm sure you can, but you won't. Not tonight." He gestured toward the stairs. "The driver knows where to take you." "I didn't tell you my address." "Porta Romana isn't very specific." His eyes held hers. "You should learn to be more careful about what information you give strangers, Ava." It should have sounded threatening. Instead, it sounded like advice. She walked to the stairs, then looked back. Marco was still watching her, hands in his pockets, expression unreadable. "Thank you," she said. "For the car or the kiss?" "Both. Neither. I don't know." "Then we're even." Ava descended the stairs and slid into the back of the car. Leather seats, tinted windows, a driver who didn't ask questions. The kind of car that cost more than she made in a year. As they pulled away from the gallery, she looked back. Marco was gone. The terrace was empty except for shadows and the faint sound of music. Her phone buzzed again. "Don't kiss any more strangers. Most of them aren't as understanding." M. Ava stared at the message. Then, despite everything, despite the humiliation and the anger and the confusion, she laughed. What the hell had she just done? The apartment was dark when she got home. Her roommate Elena was either out or asleep, which was fine. Ava wasn't ready to explain tonight to anyone, least of all Elena, who had warned her about David from the beginning. She dropped her clutch on the counter and poured herself a glass of water. Her reflection in the dark window looked tired, makeup smudged, hair falling out of the careful updo she'd spent an hour on. She looked like a woman who'd had a very long night. Her phone sat on the counter, screen dark. No new messages. Part of her had expected Marco to text again, though she couldn't say why. He seemed like the type to disappear completely, the type who gave you a car and a cryptic warning and then vanished into whatever expensive, mysterious life he came from. Ava pulled up her laptop and did what she should have done before grabbing him on that terrace. She searched Marco Milan, pages of results. Too many. She tried Marco De Luca Milan, a business website, several articles in Italian, an image search that showed a man in expensive suits at various high-profile events. She clicked on an article from 3 months ago. Her Italian was decent, but not great, so she ran it through a translator. Marco De Luca, CEO of De Luca Enterprises, announced a major acquisition in Milan's property sector. The move consolidates his position as one of the city's most influential developers. Influential. That was a diplomatic word. She kept reading. De Luca, known for his private nature and strategic business acumen, has expanded his holdings significantly over the past 5 years. Sources close to the family suggest. The article went on, but it said nothing useful, just business speak and careful language. The kind of article that told you someone was important without explaining why. She tried another search. Marco De Luca controversy. That's when things got interesting. References to legal battles, property disputes, allegations that never went anywhere. One article used the phrase alleged connections without specifying to what. Another mentioned questions about the source of early capital. Ava sat back. She'd kissed a man who might be, what? A corrupt businessman? A criminal? Or just someone rich enough that people asked questions? Her phone buzzed. Elena, asking if she was home. Ava texted back a quick yes and closed her laptop. She was overthinking this. Marco had given her a ride home. That was it. She'd never see him again. Tonight would become a funny story eventually. The time she kissed a stranger at a gallery to spite her cheating boyfriend. In 10 years, she'd tell it at parties, if she ever got invited to parties again. Ava changed into pajamas and lay in bed, staring at the ceiling. Sleep felt impossible. Her mind kept replaying the night, David's face, the blonde's embarrassment, the feeling of Marco's hand on her back, steady and sure, the way he'd kissed her back without hesitation. She grabbed her phone one more time, scrolled to his message. Don't kiss any more strangers. Most of them aren't as understanding. She should delete his number, forget tonight happened, move on. Instead, she saved his contact, just in case. Morning came with regret and a headache. Ava dragged herself out of bed and found Elena in the kitchen, already dressed and radiating the kind of energy that should be illegal before coffee. You look terrible, Elena said cheerfully. Thank you. How was the gallery thing? Ava poured coffee and considered her options. She could lie, she could deflect, or she could tell the truth and face Elena's judgment. I kissed a stranger to make David jealous. Elena's eyes went wide. What? He was cheating on me at the event. I saw him with some blonde on the terrace, and Ava gestured vaguely with her coffee mug. I grabbed the nearest guy and kissed him. Oh my God. Elena sat down hard. What did David do? I don't know. I didn't stick around. And the guy you kissed? He was surprisingly cool about it. Cool about a strange woman attacking him with her face? I didn't attack him. Ava paused. Okay, maybe I attacked him a little, but he kissed me back. Elena leaned forward, eyes gleaming. Was he hot? That's your question? It's an important question. Ava sipped her coffee. He was, yes, hot. Very hot. Also possibly a criminal. What? I looked him up, Marco De Luca. He's some kind of developer, but all the articles about him are weirdly vague. Lots of words like alleged and sources say. Marco De Luca? Elena's expression changed. You kissed Marco De Luca? You know him? Everyone knows him. Ava, he's... Elena stopped. He's complicated. Complicated how? The kind of complicated you don't ask questions about. The kind where people use words like alleged because they don't want to get sued. Or worse. Ava's stomach dropped. Worse? He's connected, Ava. Like, really connected. His family has been in Milan forever, and they have fingers in everything. Property, restaurants, clubs. Some of it legitimate. Some of it... Elena trailed off significantly. You're saying he's in the Mafia. I'm saying I don't know, and you shouldn't ask. People who are smart don't talk about the De Lucas. They just stay out of their way. Ava thought about Marco's calm confidence. The way a car appeared within seconds of his phone call. The careful language in every article about him. He seemed nice, she said weakly. Elena snorted. I'm sure he did. Guys like that are always nice right up until they're not. She softened slightly. Look, you kissed him at a party. It was impulse. Just forget about it. Forget about David. Forget about Marco De Luca and move on. You're right. I usually am. Ava's phone buzzed on the counter. Both women looked at it. Is that him? Elena asked. I don't know. Check. Ava picked up the phone. Unknown number, but not the one Marco had used last night. Miss Carter, this is Francesca Moretti from Moretti Design Group. We met briefly at last night's gallery event. I have a project that might interest you. Are you available for a meeting this week? Ava read it twice. Francesca Moretti was one of Milan's top interior designers. Ava had sent her portfolio 6 months ago and never heard back. It's a job offer, she said slowly. From Francesca Moretti. Elena's eyebrows shot up. Seriously? She wants to meet. That's amazing. When? Ava was already typing a response. I'm available whenever works for you. Thank you for reaching out. The reply came back immediately. Tomorrow, 10 a.m. My office. I'll send the address. Tomorrow, Ava said. She wants to meet tomorrow. Elena grabbed her hands. This is it. This is what you've been working for. It was. Ava had spent 3 years building her portfolio, taking small jobs, trying to break into Milan's competitive design scene. A meeting with Francesca Moretti could change everything. So why did it feel strange that it was happening now, the day after the gallery? It's probably a coincidence, Ava said. Of course it is. You're talented. She saw your work. This is your break. Ava wanted to believe that. She really did. But she couldn't shake the feeling that nothing about last night had been coincidental at all. Moretti Design Group occupied the top floor of a converted warehouse in the Navigli district. All exposed brick and industrial windows, the kind of space that screamed expensive taste and deliberate minimalism. Ava arrived 15 minutes early, dressed in her best professional outfit, a navy dress that looked sophisticated without trying too hard, heels that were elegant but practical. She'd redone her makeup 3 times that morning. The receptionist directed her to wait in a conference room with a view of the canal. Ava tried to sit still and failed. She checked her portfolio, checked her phone, tried to breathe normally. Ms. Carter. Francesca Moretti swept into the room like she owned it, which she did. Mid-40s, perfectly tailored suit, the kind of confidence that came from decades of success. Thank you for coming on short notice. Of course, thank you for the opportunity. They sat. Francesca opened a portfolio, Ava's portfolio, and flipped through it with quick, assessing eyes. You have a good eye, Francesca said. Strong use of space. You're not afraid of color, which I appreciate. Most young designers play it too safe. Thank you. I have a project, high-profile client, complete renovation of a private residence. It's a significant undertaking, multiple rooms, custom everything, substantial budget. Ava's heart was pounding. This was it. This was the kind of project that could make her career. I'd be honored to be considered. You're not being considered, you're being offered the job. Francesca closed the portfolio. If you want it. Yes. Absolutely yes. Good. Francesca slid a contract across the table. This is the NDA, Standard Confidentiality Agreement. The client values privacy. Ava scanned the document. It was thorough. She couldn't discuss the project, the client, the location, or any details of the work with anyone outside the immediate team. This seems very extensive. The client is very private. If that's a problem, no problem. Ava signed. What choice did she have? This was her shot. Francesca countersigned and pulled out another folder. The property is in central Milan. 15th century building, recently acquired. The client wants to preserve historical elements while creating a modern, functional living space. You'll work directly with my senior team, but you'll have creative control over the main living areas. She opened the folder. Ava saw blueprints, photographs of ornate ceilings, and original frescoes. It's beautiful, she breathed. It needs work. That's where you come in. Francesca checked her watch. The client wants to meet you before we proceed. Are you free this afternoon? Today? Is that a problem? Everything about this was moving too fast. Meeting today, signing an NDA before seeing the full scope. Working with a client who demanded this level of secrecy. Elena's voice echoed in her head. Just stay out of their way. But this was her career, her future. She couldn't turn it down because she was paranoid. No problem, Ava said. I'm free. Excellent. The car will pick you up at 3. The car was the same one from the gallery. Black, expensive, tinted windows. The same driver who didn't ask questions. Ava's hands were clammy as she settled into the leather seat. This was fine. This was normal. Rich people sent cars. It didn't mean anything. They drove through Milan's Centro Storico, past tourists and cafes and street performers. The driver navigated narrow streets with practiced ease, eventually stopping in front of a building that looked like it belonged in a Renaissance painting. Tall windows, original stonework, a heavy wooden door that had probably been there for centuries. This is it? Ava asked. The driver nodded and came around to open her door. She stepped out onto cobblestones, portfolio in hand. The building loomed above her, beautiful and intimidating. No nameplate, no indication of what lay inside. The door swung open before she could knock. Miss Carter, please come in. An older woman with steel gray hair and perfect posture gestured her inside. The entrance hall took Ava's breath away. Original frescoes covered the ceiling. A marble staircase curved upward. Light streamed through windows that had witnessed centuries. The client is in the main salon, the woman said. This way. They walked through hallways that felt like museums. Every detail was perfect. Every piece carefully preserved. This wasn't just a renovation project. This was history. The woman stopped at a set of double doors, knocked once, and opened them. Miss Carter, sir. Ava stepped into the room and froze. Marco De Luca stood by the window, hands in his pockets, looking exactly as unreadable as he had on the gallery terrace. Hello, Ava, he said. The door closed behind her. Ava's portfolio slipped from her fingers. It hit the marble floor with a sound that echoed through the salon like a gunshot. Marco didn't move, didn't smile, just watched her with those dark, unreadable eyes. You, she managed. Me. Her brain was trying to catch up. The high-profile client, the privacy requirements, the NDA she'd signed without asking enough questions. You set this up. I made a phone call. He walked toward her slowly, hands still in his pockets, relaxed. Like this wasn't completely insane. Francesca needed a designer for this project. You needed work. It made sense. Made sense? Ava's voice climbed. You manipulated me into taking a job working for you. I offered you an opportunity. You accepted. He stopped a few feet away. If you want to leave, the door is behind you. No one is forcing you to stay. She should leave. Walk out right now and never look back. This was wrong on every level. He'd orchestrated this entire thing. The meeting, the contract, probably the glowing recommendation that got Francesca to look at her portfolio in the first place. But she'd signed an NDA. And this project, whatever else it was, could change her career. Why? She asked. Why what? Why go through all this trouble? You don't know me. One kiss at a gallery doesn't justify... She gestured at the room, at him, at everything. Whatever this is. Marco tilted his head slightly. You're right. I don't know you, but I know you're good at what you do. I looked at your work, the apartment in Brera, the restaurant in Isola. You have talent. You investigated me. I do my research. That's not research. That's stalking. Something flickered in his expression. Amusement, maybe. If I wanted to stalk you, Ava, you wouldn't know about it. The words should have scared her. Instead, they made her angry. I don't need your charity. This isn't charity. I need a designer. You need a project. The fact that we've met before is irrelevant. Irrelevant? She laughed, sharp and bitter. You sent a car to my apartment. You knew where I lived. You had my number before I gave it to you. Yes. No excuses, no explanations, just yes. Ava bent down and picked up her portfolio. Her hands were shaking. I should go. You should see the rest of the building first. I don't think... You signed a contract. His voice was quiet but firm. At least look at what you agreed to design. She wanted to argue, wanted to throw the portfolio at his head and storm out. But he was right. She'd signed the contract, and professional curiosity was already whispering questions. What was the full scope? What was the budget? What could she actually do with a space like this? Fine, she said. Show me. Marco's expression didn't change, but she sensed satisfaction. He gestured toward the doors. After you. They walked through the building in silence. Marco pointed out rooms, mentioned original features that needed to be preserved, explained his vision for the space. His voice was professional, detached, like they were strangers meeting for the first time. The building was extraordinary. 5 stories, each one a blend of history and neglect. Frescoed ceilings covered in decades of grime. Original tile work hidden under cheap renovations from the 70s. Windows that overlooked a private courtyard with a dried fountain at its center. How long have you owned this? Ava asked, despite herself. 3 months. It belonged to a family that went bankrupt. They sold it to pay debts. And you bought it. I acquire property. It's what I do. They climbed stairs to the 3rd floor. Marco opened a door to reveal a massive room with floor-to-ceiling windows. This was the ballroom, he said. I want it to be the main living space. Open concept, modern but respectful of the original architecture. Ava walked inside. Even in its current state, dusty, damaged, abandoned, the room took her breath away. The proportions were perfect. The light was incredible. She could already see it. Clean lines, neutral palette, furniture that honored the space without competing with it. What's your timeline? She heard herself ask. 6 months for the main floors, a year for the complete renovation. That's ambitious. I don't do things halfway. She turned to look at him. He stood in the doorway, backlit by the afternoon sun filtering through dirty windows. For a moment, she let herself really look at him, the expensive suit that fit too well, the controlled posture, the face that revealed nothing. Elena's warning echoed in her head. He's connected. Stay out of their way. What do you actually do, Marco? The question came out before she could stop it. I told you. I acquire property. That's not an answer. It's the only one you need. I'm supposed to work for someone and not know anything about them? You know I pay well. You know this project could advance your career. That should be enough. It's not. Marco walked into the room. His footsteps echoed on the scarred wooden floor. What do you want to know, Ava? The truth. The truth is complicated. Try me. He stopped near one of the windows, looking out at the courtyard. My family has been in Milan for generations. We built businesses, made investments. Some of those investments exist in areas that make people uncomfortable. Areas. Gray areas. Legal, but questionable. Questionable, but not illegal. It depends who you ask. Are you in the Mafia? The question hung in the air between them. Marco turned from the window. His expression was unreadable. No. But people think you are. People think many things. Most of them are wrong. He walked toward her slowly. I'm a businessman, Ava. I make deals. I solve problems. Sometimes those problems require unconventional solutions. But I'm not a criminal. She wanted to believe him. That was the dangerous part. Standing in this beautiful, broken room, listening to his careful words, she wanted to believe everyone. Why tell me this? She asked. Because you asked. Because if you're going to work for me, you should know what you're walking into. He stopped a few feet away. And because I don't lie to people I'm interested in. The words settled between them like stones dropping into water. Interested in. Yes. You're interested in me. That surprises you? You stalked me and manipulated me into taking a job. Forgive me if I don't find that particularly flattering. I didn't manipulate you. I opened a door. You walked through it. After you built the door specifically for me to walk through. A smile touched his mouth, small but real. You're angry. Of course I'm angry. Good. Anger is honest. He stepped closer. I'd rather have your anger than your politeness. Ava's heart was racing. She should back up, create distance. Instead, she stood her ground. I kissed you to make someone else jealous, she said. That's all it was. A stupid, impulsive mistake. I know. So why do all this? Why track me down? Why offer me this project? Because that kiss was the most honest thing I've seen in years. His eyes held hers. You were furious and hurt, and you did something reckless. No calculation, no agenda. Just pure reaction. Do you know how rare that is? It was stupid. It was real. The room felt smaller suddenly, too warm. Ava could smell his cologne, something expensive and subtle. Could see the fine lines at the corners of his eyes. I can't work for you, she said quietly. Why not? Because this... She gestured between them. Whatever this is, it's too complicated. Life is complicated, Ava. That's not a reason to walk away from something good. Good? You don't even know me. I know you're talented. I know you're direct. I know you don't back down when someone challenges you. He paused. And I know that when you kiss someone, you mean it. Heat flooded her face. That was real, he finished. Like I said, she needed to leave. This conversation was spiraling into territory she wasn't prepared for, but her feet wouldn't move. What do you want from me? She asked. I want you to design this building. And then? Then we'll see. It wasn't an answer, it was a promise, or maybe a threat. Ava couldn't tell the difference anymore. Her phone buzzed in her pocket. She pulled it out. Francesca, asking if the meeting was going well. I need to think about this, Ava said. Marco nodded. Take your time. The project isn't going anywhere. And if I say no? Then you say no. The contract has an exit clause. You can walk away anytime in the first 30 days. That should have made her feel better. Instead, it made her more suspicious. Nothing about Marco DeLuca was simple or straightforward. Every gesture felt calculated, every word carefully chosen. I'll call Francesca tomorrow, she said. Fair enough. She headed for the door, made it 3 steps before his voice stopped her. Ava. She turned. For what it's worth, Marco said. I'm glad you kissed me that night. Before she could respond, he was already walking toward another doorway, phone to his ear, conversation clearly over. Ava stood alone in the ballroom, heart pounding, mind racing, and absolutely no idea what to do next. The car was waiting outside. Same driver, same silence. Ava stared out the window as they drove through Milan's streets, trying to make sense of what just happened. Marco DeLuca wanted her to design his building. Marco DeLuca was interested in her. Marco DeLuca had essentially admitted he wasn't entirely legitimate, but insisted he wasn't a criminal. And she just walked away without giving him an answer. Her phone rang. Elena. How did it go? Ava closed her eyes. The client is Marco DeLuca. Silence. Then, are you kidding me? I wish I was. Ava, you cannot work for that man. I know. Do you? Because you sound like you're considering it. Was she? The smart thing would be to decline politely, return the contract, and forget Marco DeLuca existed. Find another project, build her career the normal way. But the building was incredible. The budget was massive. And this wasn't just another job. This was the kind of project she could build an entire portfolio around. It's complicated, Ava said. It's not complicated. He's dangerous. You stay away from dangerous men. He said he's not a criminal. Elena's laugh was sharp. And you believed him? I don't know what I believe. The car pulled up to her apartment. Ava thanked the driver and stepped out. The street was busy with evening traffic. Normal people living normal lives. She felt like she'd just stepped out of a different world. I have to go, she told Elena. Promise me you'll think about this. Really think about it. I will. Ava? I promise. She hung up and climbed the stairs to her apartment. Inside, everything looked exactly as she'd left it. Coffee mug in the sink, laptop on the counter, her normal, safe, predictable life. She opened her computer and pulled up the contract she'd signed, read through it carefully this time. The terms were generous. Better than generous. The pay was triple what she'd normally charge for a project this size. Complete creative control. Her name prominently featured in all promotional materials. It was too good. That was the problem. Nothing this good came without strings. Ava pulled up her email and started typing. Francesca, thank you for the opportunity, but after careful consideration, I don't think this project is the right fit. I appreciate your time and hope we can work together in the future. Her finger hovered over send. She thought about Marco standing in that ballroom, light streaming through dirty windows. The way he'd looked at her like she was a puzzle he wanted to solve. I'm glad you kissed me that night. Ava deleted the email and slammed her laptop shut. She needed wine, and possibly a lobotomy. 2 days passed. Ava threw herself into her regular work. Small projects, local clients, the kind of jobs that paid rent but didn't set the world on fire. She ignored 3 calls from Francesca and 2 texts from an unknown number that she knew was Marco. On the 3rd day, a package arrived. No return address, just her name written in precise handwriting. Inside was a book. Old, leather-bound, pages yellowed with age. The title was in Italian, Storia dell'architettura milanese. A note fell out when she opened it. Page 47. Thought you might appreciate the context. M. Ava flipped to page 47. It showed a photograph from the early 1900s, a building she recognized immediately, Marco's building. But in the photo, it was pristine, elegant, alive. The caption explained it had been built in 1487 by a merchant family, had hosted artists, politicians, criminals, had survived wars, plagues, revolutions, had been many things to many people. Now it was waiting to be something new. She read the chapter, then the next one, then found herself 3 hours deep in Milan's architectural history, coffee cold on the table beside her. Her phone rang. Marco. This time she answered. Did you get the book? His voice was calm, like he'd expected her to pick up. Yes. And? It's beautiful. The building. What it was. What it could be again. Ava walked to her window. The city spread out below her. Thousands of buildings. Thousands of stories. Why me? She asked. You could hire anyone, someone famous, someone with more experience. I could. So why didn't you? Because famous designers would give me what they think I want. You'll give me what the building needs. There's a difference. You don't know that. I do. I saw your work. You care about spaces, about making them feel right, not just look right, feel right. It was the most accurate description of her design philosophy she'd ever heard. She'd spent 3 years trying to explain that to clients who just wanted things to look expensive. The building deserves better than me, she said. The building deserves someone who sees it the way you do. Ava leaned her forehead against the cool glass. If I do this, and I'm not saying I will, but if I do, I need rules. Oh, well, what kind of rules? Professional boundaries. This is a job, nothing else. Agreed. I mean it, Marco. No manipulation, no showing up unexpectedly, no sending cars unless I ask for them. Understood. And I need honesty. If I ask you a question, you answer it. No deflection, no careful non-answers. Silence. Then, within reason. That's not good enough. It's all I can offer. His voice was firm. There are things I can't tell you, Ava. Not because I don't want to, because they're not mine to share. But I won't lie to you. If I can't answer something, I'll say so. That's the best I can do. It wasn't what she wanted, but it was honest. More honest than David had ever been. One more thing, she said. Yes? Why did you really kiss me back that night? She could hear him breathing, thinking, choosing his words. Because in that moment, he said quietly, you were the most alive person in that room. Everyone else was playing a part, pretending to be something, but you were just angry and hurt and completely yourself, and I wanted to know what that felt like. Ava's throat tightened. And did you? Know what it felt like? Yes. What did it feel like? Like I'd been asleep for a very long time. The words hung in the air between them. Honest, raw. Nothing like the controlled businessman she'd met in the ballroom. I'll do it, she heard herself say. The project, I'll do it. Good. But if you cross any of those boundaries, you'll walk away. I know. A pause. Thank you, Ava. Don't thank me yet. You might hate everything I design. I won't. How do you know? Because I'm good at reading people, and you're good at what you do. It's simple math. Nothing about this was simple, but Ava was too tired to argue. When do we start? She asked. Tomorrow, 9 a.m. I'll send... He caught himself. Would you like me to send a car, or would you prefer to make your own way? Despite everything, she smiled. I'll take the car, but I'm keeping track. You're buying me coffee for every ride. Deal. They said goodbye. Ava set down her phone and stared at the book on her table. What was she doing? Getting involved with a man who was either dangerous or just adjacent to danger. Taking on a project that was probably more complicated than she could handle. Ignoring every red flag because... What? Because he'd kissed her back? Because he'd called her alive? She picked up her phone and called Elena. I took the job. Elena's sigh was loud enough to hear from space. Of course you did. I need you to tell me I'm not insane. You're completely insane. This is a terrible idea. That's not helpful. You asked for honesty. Elena's voice softened. Look, I can't tell you what to do, but be careful, okay? Men like Marco DeLuca, they're not like normal people. They play by different rules. He promised professional boundaries. And you believed him? I want to. That's not the same thing as actually believing him. Ava knew that. She did. But she'd already made her choice. I'll be careful, she promised. Famous last words. That night, Ava dreamed about the building. But in her dream, it wasn't empty. It was filled with people, music, laughter, light streaming through clean windows, and Marco standing in the middle of it all, watching her with those dark, unreadable eyes. She woke up at 6 a.m., pulse racing, knowing she'd just made either the best or worst decision of her life. The car arrived at 8:30. Ava had changed outfits 4 times before settling on professional, but not trying too hard. Black pants, cream blouse, hair up, minimal jewelry. The driver nodded in greeting and opened the door. She was getting used to this. That probably wasn't good. They drove through morning traffic to the building. Marco was waiting outside, phone in hand, talking to someone in rapid Italian. He saw her and ended the call immediately. Punctual, he said. You sound surprised. Most creative people run on their own schedule. I'm not most creative people. No, you're not. He led her inside. The building looked different in morning light. Less romantic. More daunting. The scope of work ahead suddenly felt massive. I've put together a team, Marco said as they climbed the stairs. Contractors, electricians, plumbers, they'll handle the structural work. You'll coordinate with them on design elements. When do they start? Next week. I wanted to give you time to develop the initial concepts first. They reached the 3rd floor, the ballroom. Marco had brought in temporary lighting, industrial lamps that made everything harsh and real. I need to spend time here, Ava said, walking into the center of the room. Alone, to understand the space. How much time? However long it takes. Marco nodded, pulled a set of keys from his pocket and held them out. The building is yours. Come and go as you need. Just let security know when you're here. Security? There's a team that monitors the property. He saw her expression. It's a valuable building in a high-traffic area. It's standard. Standard for who? But she'd promised herself to choose her battles. Ava took the keys. They were warm from being in his pocket. Thank you, she said. I'll leave you to it. He headed for the door, then stopped. Ava? Yes? I meant what I said. Professional boundaries. I won't push. Good. But I'm still glad you kissed me. Before she could respond, he was gone. Footsteps echoing down the stairs. A door closing somewhere below. Ava stood alone in the ballroom, keys in hand, and let herself admit the truth. She was glad she'd kissed him too, And that was going to be a problem. The first week, Ava came to the building every day. She measured spaces, photographed angles, sat in corners, and watched how light moved across the walls. She filled 3 notebooks with sketches and ideas that she immediately crossed out. The building was fighting her. That's what it felt like. Every time she thought she'd found the right approach, something about the space pushed back. Too modern, and it lost its soul. Too historical, and it became a museum. She needed the sweet spot between honoring what was and creating what could be. Marco stayed away, true to his word about boundaries, but his presence was everywhere. In the contractors who showed up exactly when they said they would, in the structural reports that appeared on her makeshift desk, in the coffee that materialized every morning from the security guard who worked the front entrance. Mr. DeLuca wanted to make sure you had what you needed, the guard said each time. His name was Luca, mid-50s, friendly eyes, the kind of person who'd probably seen everything. Does Mr. DeLuca usually take this much interest in his projects? Ava asked on day 5. Luca's smile was careful. Mr. DeLuca takes interest in everything. That's why he's successful. Not an answer, but she was getting used to those. On day 7, she found the courtyard. She'd walked past it a dozen times, but always focused on getting inside. This time, something made her stop. The fountain at its center was dry, covered in moss and debris, but the structure was intact. Original stonework, a cherub holding what had once been a water vessel. Ava pulled out her phone and started taking photos. The courtyard could be the heart of the whole project. Natural light source for the ground floor, visual anchor for the upper windows. A connection between inside and outside that the building desperately needed. She was so focused on the fountain that she didn't hear footsteps behind her. You found my favorite part. Ava spun around. Marco stood in the courtyard entrance, hands in his pockets. He wore jeans today, dark shirt, no tie. It made him look younger, less controlled. I thought you were staying away, she said. I was, but it's been a week and I wanted to see how things were going. You could have called. I could have. He walked toward the fountain. But I wanted to see it, the space. What you're thinking. Ava gestured at her notebook scattered on the courtyard stones. Right now I'm thinking this whole project might be beyond me. You don't believe that. How would you know? Because if you did, you'd have quit already. He picked up one of her notebooks, flipped through sketches. These are good. They're rough. They're honest. That's better than polished. He stopped on a page where she'd drawn the ballroom with floor-to-ceiling glass doors opening onto a balcony. This doesn't exist. It could. Structurally, the wall there isn't load-bearing. We could remove it, create the opening. Marco studied the sketch. It would change the whole feel of the room. That's the point. Right now it's closed off, trapped in its own history. But if you open it up, let it breathe, it becomes something new while still being itself. He looked at her. Is that what you're doing? Opening things up? The question felt like it had layers. Ava took the notebook back. I'm designing a building, that's all. Of course. But his eyes held hers a moment longer than necessary. Have you eaten? What? It's past noon. Have you had lunch? I had coffee. Coffee isn't lunch. It is when you're on a deadline. Marco's mouth twitched, almost a smile. There's a place 2 blocks from here, best carbonara in Milan. Come eat with me. I should work. You've been working for 7 days straight. You can take an hour. Is this you respecting professional boundaries? This is me making sure my designer doesn't pass out from low blood sugar. He started walking toward the courtyard exit. Coming? She should say no. Stay here. Maintain distance. But her stomach chose that moment to growl loudly, and Marco heard it. That's a yes, he said. The restaurant was small, maybe 10 tables. The kind of place locals went to avoid tourists. The owner greeted Marco like family, kissed both his cheeks, and led them to a corner table without asking if they had a reservation. You come here often, Ava observed. My mother used to bring me here as a child, before she died. The words were casual, but something in his tone made her look up. His face was carefully neutral. I'm sorry. It was a long time ago. He accepted menus from the owner. 23 years. I was 12. Ava did the math. That made him 35. She'd guessed right. What about your father? He died when I was 17. Heart attack. Marco opened his menu. The carbonara really is excellent here, unless you don't eat pasta. The subject change was deliberate. Ava recognized a closed door when she saw one. But he'd given her something, a glimpse of the person under the control. They ordered. Carbonara for her, cacio e pepe for him. Wine that the owner insisted they try. Tell me about the project, Marco said. What's your vision? You want the polite version or the honest version? I told you, I don't want polite. Ava sipped her wine. It was excellent. Everything in Marco's orbit seemed to be excellent. The building is schizophrenic, she said. Half of it wants to be a museum. The other half wants to be modern. Right now it's neither. It's stuck. And your solution? Stop fighting what it is. The building has history. Embrace that. But don't let history strangle the present. Create spaces that honor the past while being completely functional for now. The balcony. The balcony is one example, but it's the approach for everything. Keep the frescoes but add modern lighting. Preserve the tile work but pair it with clean, simple furniture. Let the old and new have a conversation instead of a fight. Marco listened without interrupting. His focus was intense, like she was the only person in the room. What about the courtyard? He asked. The courtyard is the key. Right now it's dead space. But if we restore the fountain, add greenery, create sight lines from the interior rooms, it becomes the heart, the thing everything else revolves around. That's a significant undertaking. You said you don't do things halfway. I don't. He leaned back. But I need to know you're committed. This isn't a 6-month project. It's a year, maybe more. I know. And you're prepared for that? Ava met his eyes. Are you asking if I'm going to bail when things get difficult? I'm asking if you understand what you've signed up for. A building renovation. Is that all? The question hung between them. The restaurant hummed with conversation, silverware on plates, wine being poured, normal people having normal lunches. What else would it be? Ava asked carefully. Marco's expression didn't change. Nothing? Just making sure we're on the same page. Their food arrived. The carbonara was perfect, rich, creamy, exactly the right amount of pepper. They ate in comfortable silence for a few minutes. Can I ask you something? Ava said. You can ask. Why this building? You said you acquire property, but this one feels personal. Marco set down his fork. My grandmother lived here when I was very young, before the family sold it. Your family owned it? Briefly. The 80s. Things were complicated then. He paused. She used to tell me stories about the building, the people who'd lived here, the parties they'd thrown. It was the only time she seemed happy. And you bought it back. When it became available. Yes. Ava looked at him with new understanding. This wasn't just an investment. This was personal, family, memory. Does your family know? She asked. I don't have family anymore. Not close family, some cousins, distant relatives. He picked up his wine. It's just me. The loneliness in those words hit her unexpectedly. Here was a man who seemed to have everything, money, power, influence, but no one to share it with. That must be hard, she said. It's practical. No one to answer to, no one to disappoint. That's a sad way to live. It's realistic. But something in his voice suggested he didn't entirely believe it. They finished lunch. Marco paid despite Ava's protests. They walked back to the building through streets filled with afternoon shoppers. Thank you for lunch, Ava said. You're welcome. And thank you for telling me about your grandmother. It helps, knowing what the building means to you. Marco stopped walking. They were in front of the building now. The afternoon sun made the old stone glow. Don't make it too precious, he said. I want it to be beautiful, but I also want it to be livable, real, not a shrine. I understand. Good. He pulled out his phone, checked something. I have to go. Meetings. Of course. He started to leave, then turned back. Ava? Yes? You're doing well. Better than well. Don't doubt yourself so much. Before she could respond, he was walking away. Long strides. Purpose. A man who always knew exactly where he was going. Ava watched until he disappeared around a corner. Then she went back inside and sketched the courtyard with its fountain running, water catching light, making everything alive again. The next 2 weeks blurred together. Ava worked 14-hour days, the contractors started on the structural repairs, the building filled with noise and dust and the sound of things being torn down to be rebuilt. She met with Francesca twice a week to review progress. Francesca had notes, suggestions, connections to suppliers and craftsmen, but she let Ava drive the creative vision. "Marco was right about you," Francesca said during their third meeting. "You see spaces differently." "He said that?" "He said a lot of things, most of them complimentary." Francesca smiled. "It's unusual. Marco doesn't compliment easily." Ava didn't know what to do with that information, so she changed the subject. Marco stayed away. Mostly, he'd text occasionally. Questions about timelines or budgets. Once to tell her the fountain restoration specialist was coming Tuesday. Never anything personal. Ava told herself she was grateful for the distance. It made things simpler, professional. But she'd be lying if she said she didn't look for him every time she entered the building, didn't listen for his voice in the hallways, didn't wonder what he was doing when she worked late and the building was quiet except for security. On week 3, everything changed. Ava was in the ballroom reviewing tile samples with one of the contractors when Luca appeared in the doorway. His usual friendly expression was gone. "Ms. Carter, you need to come with me." "What's wrong?" "There's been an incident. Mr. DeLuca asked that you be taken somewhere safe." Ava's stomach dropped. "What kind of incident? Please, we need to go now." The contractor was already packing up, moving fast, scared. Ava followed Luca down the stairs. 2 more security guards had appeared. They flanked her as they walked to a car. Not Marco's usual car. This one was bigger. Darker windows. "Luca, you're scaring me." "It's just precautionary, Ms. Carter." But his hand was on something under his jacket, something that looked like a weapon. They drove through Milan in silence. Ava tried calling Marco. It went straight to voicemail. She tried Francesca. Same thing. "Where are we going?" she demanded. "A hotel. You'll be comfortable there. Safe." "Safe from what?" Luca met her eyes in the rear-view mirror. "There are people who don't like Mr. DeLuca's business dealings. Sometimes they express their displeasure in unpleasant ways." "What does that have to do with me?" "You work for him. That makes you visible. A potential target." The words didn't make sense. Target, like she was part of some kind of war. "I'm just a designer." "You're a person Mr. DeLuca values. That's enough." They pulled up to a hotel. Expensive. Discreet. The kind of place that catered to people who needed privacy. Luca escorted her through a side entrance, up a private elevator, to a suite on the top floor. "You'll stay here until we know it's safe," he said. "Everything you need is provided. Don't leave the room. Don't answer the door unless it's me or Mr. DeLuca." "How long?" "I don't know. I'm sorry." He left. The door locked behind him with a heavy click. Ava stood in the suite alone. It was beautiful. Marble bathroom. View of the city. Fruit basket on the table. Like a luxurious prison. She tried Marco again. Still voicemail. Her hands were shaking. This was insane. She was a designer. She fixed spaces. She didn't get caught up in whatever dangerous games Marco was playing. Elena had been right. She should have walked away when she had the chance. The hours crawled past. Ava paced. Watched news on her phone. Found nothing about any incidents in Milan. Tried calling everyone she could think of. No one answered. At 8 p.m., there was a knock at the door. "It's me." Marco's voice. Ava ran to the door and yanked it open. He looked different. Hair disheveled, tie loosened, something hard in his eyes that she hadn't seen before. "Are you all right?" he asked. "Am I all right? What the hell is happening?" Marco stepped inside and closed the door. "There was a situation at one of my properties. A rival making a statement. It's handled." "What kind of statement?" "The kind that involves fire and vandalism." He ran a hand through his hair. "They knew about the renovation, knew you were working there. I couldn't take the risk." "Risk of what?" "Someone throwing a brick at me?" "Risk of them using you to get to me." The words settled like lead in her stomach. "Using me?" "Yes." "Because I work for you." "Because they think you matter to me." Marco's eyes held hers. "And they're not wrong." Ava's breath caught. Marco, I know. Professional boundaries, I'm trying. But I can't pretend you're just another contractor. You're not. He stepped closer. These people, they look for leverage. Weak points. They saw you at the building. They know we've had lunch. They'll make assumptions. What kind of assumptions? That you're important. That hurting you would hurt me. And would it? The question came out quieter than she meant it. Marco's jaw tightened. Yes. The admission hung between them. All the careful distance they'd maintained for 3 weeks, gone in one word. I should quit, Ava said. Walk away before this gets worse. You could. But I don't want you to. He moved closer, close enough that she could see the exhaustion in his eyes. I know that's selfish. I know you'd be safer if you stayed away from me. But I don't want you to go. This is crazy, Marco. I barely know you. You know me better than most people. I know you acquired a building and have enemies who set fires. That's not knowing someone. That's knowing about them. Then ask me. Whatever you want to know, I'll tell you. Ava looked at him, really looked. At the expensive clothes that couldn't hide how tired he was, at the control that was finally cracking. Are you dangerous? She asked. Yes. Have you hurt people? Yes. Do you regret it? Marco was quiet for a long moment. Some of them. Not all. The honesty should have scared her. Instead, it made everything clearer. This was who he was. Not a villain, not a hero, just a man who'd made choices in a world she didn't understand. I can't do this halfway, she said. If I stay, if we do whatever this is becoming, I need all of you. Not the careful version, the real one. The real version isn't pretty, Ava. I don't need pretty, I need honest. Marco studied her face, looking for something, doubt maybe, fear. But Ava was tired of being afraid, tired of playing it safe. I don't have relationships, Marco said quietly. I have arrangements, transactions, people I keep at a distance because it's easier that way. Why? Because everyone I've let close has either left or died. It's simpler to stay alone. That's not living, that's just existing. It's safe. Safe is boring. Ava stepped closer. I kissed you because I was angry and hurt and wanted to feel something. You kissed me back because I was real. Well, this is me being real again. I don't want safe. I want whatever this is, even if it's complicated and messy and possibly dangerous. You don't know what you're asking for. Then show me. The space between them was nothing. Everything. Marco's hand came up to her face, thumb brushing her cheek. If I do this, he said, if we do this, there's no going back. My world doesn't let go easily. I'm not asking it to let go. I'm asking you to let me in. Something in his expression shifted, the control finally breaking completely. He kissed her. It wasn't like the gallery. This was slower, deliberate. His hand tangled in her hair. Her fingers found the buttons of his shirt. They moved toward the bedroom without breaking apart, stumbling over furniture, too focused on each other to care about grace. This was the honest version, rough and imperfect and completely real. Afterward, they lay tangled in expensive sheets, the city lights painting patterns on the walls. Marco's fingers traced idle patterns on her shoulder. I've never brought anyone here, he said. The hotel? Any of my properties. I keep things separate. Business, personal, everything in its own box. Why? Control. If nothing overlaps, nothing can hurt you. Ava propped herself up on one elbow. That sounds exhausting. It is. His eyes met hers. But I don't know how else to be. Maybe you start by not trying to be anything. Just be. Marco's laugh was quiet. You make it sound simple. It is simple. You just make it complicated. She settled back against his chest. His heartbeat was steady under her ear. For someone so controlled, he was surprisingly warm. What happens now? She asked. Now you stay here tonight. Tomorrow we assess whether it's safe to return to the building. I meant with us. I don't know. His arm tightened around her. I'm making this up as I go. Good. Me too. They fell asleep like that. Ava's last thought before unconsciousness was that this was either the best or worst decision she'd ever made. Probably both. Morning came with coffee and pastries that appeared without explanation. Marco was already dressed, phone in hand, speaking rapid Italian to someone who sounded anxious. He hung up and turned to Ava. "The building is secure. You can go back if you want." "Do you want me to?" "I want you safe. If that means taking a few days away, I'm not running because someone set a fire." Ava stood up, still wearing his shirt from last night. "I have work to do." Something like admiration crossed his face. "You're stubborn. You're just figuring that out?" "No, but I'm appreciating it more now." They drove back to the building together. The damage from last night's incident was minor. A broken window, some graffiti, nothing that couldn't be fixed. But the message was clear. Someone was watching. Luca met them at the entrance. "The police came by, asked questions. I told them it was probably kids." "Good," Marco said. "Keep it quiet." "Already done." Inside, the contractors were back at work, acting like nothing had happened. Maybe for them, nothing had. In Marco's world, maybe broken windows were just Tuesday. Ava spent the day working on design details with one of the craftsmen, but her mind kept wandering. To last night. To Marco's admission that she mattered. To the way he'd kissed her like she was air and he'd been drowning. He appeared around 3, bringing coffee. Their fingers brushed when she took the cup. "How's it going?" he asked. "Good. Pietro thinks he can restore the original molding in the library." "That's good news." They stood in awkward silence. Last night they'd been tangled together. This afternoon they were strangers again. "This is weird," Ava said finally. "What is?" "Pretending. Like we didn't just—" She gestured vaguely. Marco's mouth twitched. "You want me to announce it to the contractors?" "No, but I don't want to pretend it didn't happen." He stepped closer, lowered his voice. "Neither do I. But we're in the middle of a work site with 20 people around, so unless you want to give them a show—" Point taken. His hand found hers, just for a moment. A squeeze that promised later. Then he was walking away, back to being the boss, leaving her standing there with her heart doing stupid things in her chest. Ava turned back to her work and tried to focus. But everything had changed. The building felt different. The project felt different. She felt different. And for the first time in 3 years of playing it safe in Milan, she had absolutely no idea what came next. That's how the next month went. Days spent transforming the building, nights spent learning Marco. They didn't announce anything, didn't define what they were doing. But the security team knew. The contractors knew. Francesca definitely knew based on the knowing look she gave Ava during their weekly meeting. "You're glowing," Francesca said, reviewing fabric samples. "It's the dust." Very flattering. "It's not the dust." Francesca set down her coffee. "Marco is different too. Less rigid. I've worked with him for 5 years and I've never seen him smile at a construction update. Maybe he's just happy with the progress." Maybe. But Francesca's expression said she knew better. "Be careful, Ava. Men like Marco, they don't do things halfway. When they commit, it's absolute, but that intensity can be overwhelming." "I can handle it." "I hope so. Because once you're in his world, getting out is complicated." The words stayed with Ava as she returned to the building. Was she in his world now? She still had her own apartment, her own life. But increasingly, her days revolved around Marco's schedule. Dinners at his places, mornings waking up in beds that weren't hers. Elena had stopped asking questions after Ava came home at 6 a.m. for the 3rd time in a week. "Just promise me you know what you're doing," Elena had said. Ava had promised, but she wasn't sure it was true. The building was taking shape. The ballroom now had the glass doors Ava had sketched. The courtyard fountain ran clear water. Original frescoes emerged from decades of grime, revealing colors that made Ava want to cry. Marco walked through every few days, observing progress with his usual controlled attention. But sometimes Ava would catch him looking at her instead of the work. Those moments made her stomach flip. "What?" she'd ask. "Nothing, just watching you work." "That's creepy." "Is it?" "A little." But she didn't mind. Not really. They were reviewing lighting options in the library when Marco's phone rang. He glanced at the screen and his expression changed. Went hard. I need to take this, he said, already walking away. Ava heard him speaking Italian, angry Italian, the kind where vowels got sharp and volume increased. She tried not to eavesdrop, but the library had excellent acoustics. When he returned, his jaw was tight. Problem? Ava asked. Nothing I can't handle. That's not an answer. Marco looked at her, seemed to be calculating something. There's a meeting tonight, business. It might run late. Okay. I want you to stay at your apartment, not the hotel, not here, home with Elena. Why? Because I'm asking. The tone was wrong, too controlled, like he was forcing calm. Marco, what's going on? Just business complications. I need to know you're somewhere safe while I deal with them. Ava set down her lighting samples. You're scaring me. I'm being cautious. There's a difference. He stepped closer, cupped her face. Please, just do this for me. She wanted to argue, to demand real answers, but the look in his eyes stopped her. Fine, I'll go home. Thank you. He kissed her forehead. I'll call you when I'm done. He didn't call. By midnight, Ava was pacing her apartment. Elena watched from the couch, pretending to read a magazine. He's probably just in meetings, Elena said. For 6 hours? Rich people have long meetings. Ava tried his number again. Straight to voicemail. She tried Luca. Same thing. At 1 a.m., someone knocked on the door. Ava ran to open it. But it wasn't Marco. It was a woman she'd never seen before. Mid-30s, dark suit, the kind of face that gave nothing away. Miss Carter? Yes? I'm Sophia. I work for Mr. DeLuca. He asked me to check on you. Where is he? Still in his meeting, but he wanted to make sure you were safe. Is he in danger? Sophia's expression didn't change. Mr. DeLuca can handle himself, but he worries about people he cares about. The admission was startling, coming from the stranger who worked for Marco. When will he be done? Ava asked. I don't know. These things take time. Sophia handed her a card. My number. If you need anything, call. She left before Ava could ask more questions. Elena appeared at Ava's shoulder. Who was that? Someone Marco sent to babysit me. That's romantic. That's terrifying. Ava closed the door. What kind of business meeting requires checking on your girlfriend at 1 in the morning? The kind you probably don't want to know about. Ava's phone buzzed. Marco, finally. I'm fine. Meeting ran long. Stay where you are. I'll see you tomorrow. She typed back immediately. What happened? No response. Ava tried calling. It rang once, then went to voicemail. He'd declined it. Something's wrong, she said. Elena looked up from her magazine. Maybe you should take a step back, get some distance. I can't. Why not? Because somewhere in the past month, Marco had become necessary. Like breathing, the thought of stepping back felt impossible. I don't know, Ava said. I just can't. She didn't sleep. Just lay in bed staring at the ceiling, phone on her chest, waiting for it to ring. It didn't. Morning came with no word from Marco. Ava dragged herself to the building, exhausted and anxious. Luca was at his usual post. Is he here? She asked. In his office. 3rd floor. Marco had an office in the building? Since when? Ava climbed the stairs and found a room she'd thought was storage. But inside was a desk, chairs, papers everywhere. Marco stood at the window, phone to his ear. He turned when she entered. His face was bruised. Not badly, but enough to notice. Dark purple along his jaw. Ava's breath caught. What happened? Marco ended his call. Business negotiations got heated. Someone hit you. Several someones, actually. But I'm fine. You're not fine. You're hurt. She moved closer, reaching for his face. He caught her wrist gently. It looks worse than it is. Marco. Leave it, Ava. The dismissal stung. You can't just shut me out. I'm not shutting you out. I'm protecting you. From what? From things you don't need to be involved in. His voice was firm, final. Ava pulled her hand back. So what am I? Just the designer you sleep with? Someone you keep in a separate box? That's not fair. No, what's not fair is you deciding what I can and can't handle, what I do and don't need to know. She was getting loud now, didn't care. You said you wanted honest. Well, this isn't honest. This is you controlling everything like you always do. Marco's jaw tightened. You don't understand. Then make me understand. Tell me what happened. Tell me why you have bruises. Tell me why you sent someone to check on me at 1 in the morning. There was a dispute about territory, business holdings. It got physical. That's all you need to know. That's all you're willing to tell me. There's a difference. They stood facing each other. Two stubborn people who didn't know how to bend. I can't do this, Marco said quietly. I can't have you in the middle of my business. It's too dangerous. So what? We go back to pretending? Professional boundaries? Maybe that would be better. The words hit like a slap. Ava felt her throat tighten. Fine, she managed. Professional it is. She turned to leave. Made it 2 steps before Marco's hand caught her arm. Wait. Let go. Ava, please. She turned back. His expression had cracked, the control finally breaking. I don't know how to do this, he said. Let someone in. Care about someone. Every instinct tells me to push you away, keep you safe by keeping you distant. But I don't want to. His hand slid down her arm to her hand. I want you close, even though it terrifies me. Ava's anger was fading, replaced by something more complicated. I'm not fragile, Marco. I don't need protection. I need honesty. The honest truth is that my world is violent sometimes. People get hurt. I got hurt last night because I made a choice that protected my interests, and I'd make the same choice again. What choice? Marco was quiet for a long moment. Someone wanted to buy this building, offered twice what I paid. When I refused, they suggested I reconsider, strongly. I suggested they forget they'd ever heard of this property. And they hit you. They tried to intimidate me. It didn't work. Ava looked at his bruised face. Why didn't you sell? You could have made a profit. Because this building matters. It's not just an investment. His eyes held hers. And because you're here, your work, your vision, I'm not walking away from that for any amount of money. The admission settled between them. Heavy, real. You're an idiot, Ava said. Frequently. You could have been seriously hurt. But I wasn't. This time, she touched his jaw carefully. What about next time? There might not be a next time. These people understand now that I'm serious. And if they don't, then I'll handle it. Ava wanted to argue, to make him promise he'd be safe, but she was learning that Marco didn't make promises he couldn't keep. I need you to tell me when things like this happen, she said. I can't be blindsided. If we're doing this, really doing this, I need to know what I'm walking into. Marco nodded slowly. Okay. Okay. I'll tell you, within reason. Some things I can't share, but I'll try to be more open. It wasn't perfect, but it was something. Ava leaned up and kissed him carefully, avoiding the bruise. You're still an idiot. I know. They stood there for a moment. Then Marco's phone rang. He glanced at it and sighed. I have to take this. Go. I have work to do anyway. But as she left his office, Ava couldn't shake the feeling that this was just the beginning, that Marco's world was bigger and more complicated than she'd imagined, and she was already too deep to walk away. The next 2 weeks were tense. Marco was dealing with fallout from whatever had happened. He was gone more than usual. Meetings in other cities. Late nights that turned into early mornings. When he was at the building, he was distracted. But he kept his promise. He told her when things were difficult. When another property was vandalized. When someone made threats. Never in detail, but enough that she understood. The building project moved forward. The main floors were nearly finished. Ava spent long hours choosing final details. Hardware, paint colors, lighting fixtures, the small things that made a space feel complete. She was in the courtyard one afternoon, supervising the installation of plants around the fountain, when her phone rang. Unknown number. Hello? Ms. Carter? A man's voice, accented, not one she recognized. Yes? You don't know me, but I know you. I know you work for Marco DeLuca. I know you matter to him. Ava's stomach dropped. Who is this? That's not important. What's important is that you understand something. Marco thinks he's untouchable. that he can refuse my offers and face no consequences. I need you to help him understand that's not true. I don't know what you're talking about. Yes, you do. Tell Marco that everyone has pressure points. Everyone has something they can't afford to lose. He should think about that before our next conversation. The line went dead. Ava stood frozen, phone in hand. The contractors kept working around her, oblivious, but she felt like the world had just tilted. She called Marco immediately. "Someone just called me," she said when he answered. "A man. He said I should tell you that everyone has pressure points." Silence on the other end. Then, "Where are you?" "The courtyard." "Stay there. I'm coming." He arrived 15 minutes later with Luca and 2 other security guards. His face was dark with anger. "Tell me exactly what he said." Ava repeated the conversation word for word. Marco's expression got harder with every sentence. "This is Castellano," he said when she finished. "The man who wanted to buy the building. He threatened me. He threatened to threaten you. There's a difference." But Marco's hands were clenched. "This is my fault. I should have seen this coming. What do we do?" "You don't do anything. You stay away from the building until I resolve this." "I'm not running." "Ava, I said I'm not running. This is my project, my work. I'm not letting some bully chase me away." Marco looked at her like he wanted to argue. Then something in his expression shifted. "You're sure?" "Completely." "Then you don't go anywhere alone. Luca or someone from the team is with you at all times. No exceptions." "That's excessive." "That's the deal. Take it or I physically remove you from Milan." Ava believed he would. "Fine, bodyguards, but I'm finishing this project." "Stubborn," Marco muttered. "You like stubborn." "I'm reconsidering." But his hand found hers, squeezed. That night, Marco took her to his apartment. Not the hotel. His actual home. A penthouse overlooking the Duomo. All glass and stone and carefully controlled luxury. "You live here?" Ava walked to the windows. The city spread out below like scattered light. "When I'm not at one of my other properties. Yes." "How many properties do you have?" "Enough that I sometimes forget where I left things." She turned to look at him. He'd shed his jacket, loosened his tie, looked tired. "Are you okay?" she asked. "I'm furious. Someone threatened you because of me. That's unacceptable." "But I'm fine." This time, he poured 2 glasses of wine, handed her one. "Castellano is testing me, seeing if he can use you as leverage." "Can he?" Marco met her eyes. "Yes." The admission was stark, honest. "What are you going to do?" Ava asked. "Make it very clear that threatening you was a mistake." He sipped his wine. "There are rules in my world. Lines you don't cross." He crossed one today. "What kind of rules?" "Family is off limits. Partners are off limits. You go after someone's business, their money, their reputation, but you leave the people they care about alone." And he broke that rule. Spectacularly. Ava sat on his couch. The leather was soft, expensive. Everything in Marco's life was expensive. "Tell me about him," she said. "Castellano." Marco joined her, close but not touching. "He's old money, Milan family. Thinks he should control certain areas of the city because his grandfather did. He's been buying up properties in the Centro for years. And you got in his way. I bought something he wanted. He doesn't handle rejection well. So what happens now? Now I remind him why people don't threaten Marco De Luca." The words should have sounded arrogant. Instead, they sounded like fact. They drank wine in silence for a while. The city glittered below them. Somewhere down there, people were living normal lives, going to dinner, watching movies, not worrying about territorial disputes and threats. "Do you ever miss it?" Ava asked. "Miss what?" "Normal, simple. A life where business disputes don't involve bodyguards." Marco considered the question. "I've never had normal. My father trained me for this world from the time I could walk. This is all I know." "That's sad." "Is it? I have money, power, influence. Most people would call that success." "But are you happy?" The question seemed to catch him off guard. He looked at her for a long moment. "I am right now," he said quietly. Ava set down her wine and moved closer. "Just right now?" These past weeks. With you. Yes. She kissed him. Soft at first, then deeper. His hands found her waist. They made their way to his bedroom, shedding clothes along the way. Later, lying in his bed with Milan spread out below them, Ava felt the weight of what they were doing. This wasn't casual. This wasn't simple. This was two people diving into something that could destroy them both. I'm scared, she admitted into the darkness. Marco's arm tightened around her. Of what? Of this. You. How much I'm starting to need you. I'm scared too. Of me? Of losing you. Of my world touching you. And destroying what we have. He was quiet for a moment. Everyone I've loved has left or died. It's easier not to love anyone. Is that what this is? Love? Marco turned to face her. His eyes were dark in the dim light. I don't know. I've never felt like this before. Like someone matters more than all the careful control, more than the rules I've built my life around. Ava's heart was pounding. That sounds like love. Then yes, I think I'm falling in love with you. Probably have been since you grabbed me at that gallery. The words settled between them. No taking them back now. I think I'm falling in love with you too, Ava said. Even though you're complicated and dangerous and probably terrible for me. Marco's laugh was quiet. Probably. Definitely. He kissed her, soft and careful, like she was something precious. They fell asleep tangled together. But Ava's last thought before unconsciousness was that loving Marco DeLuca meant accepting his world, all of it, the violence, the danger, the threats. And she still didn't know if she was strong enough for that. The next morning brought answers. Ava woke to an empty bed and the sound of Marco's voice in another room, angry, sharp. She pulled on his shirt and followed the sound. He was in his office, phone pressed to his ear, pacing. I don't care what he thinks is reasonable, Marco was saying in English. For her benefit, probably. He threatened my partner. That's not something I negotiate about. Pause. Then tell him to expect consequences. Real ones. He hung up and turned to find Ava in the doorway. That was Castellano's lawyer, he said. Apparently last night's call was a misunderstanding. He wants to meet, talk things through. Is that good? It means he's realized he made a mistake, but it also means he's looking for a way to save face. Marco ran a hand through his hair. I'm meeting him this afternoon. Where? Neutral territory. A restaurant in Brera. Very public. Very safe. I'm coming with you. No. Marco, this isn't a discussion. You're not coming anywhere near Castellano. His voice was firm, final. Ava felt her temper rise. You can't just decide, I can and I am. This is my world, Ava. These are my rules. You stay out of it. So what am I supposed to do? Sit here and wait? Yes. That's not fair. Life isn't fair. Marco crossed to her, cupped her face. I need to know you're safe. Please. Just this once, don't fight me. Ava wanted to argue, but the look in his eyes stopped her. Fine, she said, but you call me the second it's over. I will. He kissed her, long and deep, like he was memorizing the taste. Then he was gone, leaving Ava alone in his penthouse with nothing to do but wait and worry. The hours crawled past. She tried to work, reviewed design plans on her laptop, answered emails. But her mind kept drifting to Marco, to what was happening at that restaurant. At 4 p.m., her phone rang. Unknown number again. Her stomach dropped, but she answered. Hello? Ava Carter? A woman's voice this time, professional, clipped. Yes? This is Dr. Rossi from San Rafael Hospital. I'm calling about Marco DeLuca. You're listed as his emergency contact. The world tilted. What happened? Ava managed. There's been an incident. Mr. DeLuca was brought in 20 minutes ago. He's stable, but he's asking for you. I'm on my way. Ava didn't remember the cab ride to the hospital, didn't remember running through the emergency entrance or demanding to see Marco DeLuca. She only remembered the nurse's careful expression when she said, Room 304, and pointed down a sterile white hallway. Marco was sitting up in bed when she burst through the door. His shirt was gone, replaced by a hospital gown, bandages wrapped around his ribs. His face had new bruises to match the old ones. You're alive, Ava said, stopping in the doorway. Disappointed? Not funny. She crossed to him. Her hands were shaking. What happened? Castellano brought friends to the meeting, more than we expected. Things got physical before Luca could intervene. Marco winced as he shifted position. Cracked ribs, some bruising, nothing serious. You're in a hospital. Precautionary. They wanted to make sure nothing was bleeding internally. He caught her hand. I'm fine, Ava. You're not fine. You're hurt because of a building, because you wouldn't sell, because I wouldn't be intimidated. There's a difference. Ava pulled her hand back. Is there? Because from where I'm standing, it looks like stubbornness almost got you killed. It wasn't that serious. 4 against 1 isn't serious? What if Luca hadn't been there? What if they'd had weapons? Her voice was rising. What if I'd gotten a call saying you were dead instead of stable? Marco's expression softened. Come here. No. Ava, I can't do this. The words came out choked. I can't sit around waiting to find out if you're alive or dead. I can't be the emergency contact who gets called when things go wrong. I can't. She stopped, breathing hard, trying not to cry. Marco pushed himself up despite the obvious pain it caused. Look at me. She did. His eyes were dark and serious. I'm sorry, he said. I'm sorry I scared you. I'm sorry my world is violent and dangerous. I'm sorry I can't promise this won't happen again. He reached for her hand. This time she let him take it. But I'm not sorry I met you. I'm not sorry I fell in love with you. And I'm not sorry I kept this building because it meant keeping you in my life. That's not romantic, Marco. That's insane, maybe. But it's true. A doctor appeared in the doorway. Young, professional, looked like she'd had a very long day. Mr. DeLuca, I have your discharge papers. You're free to go, but I want you resting for at least a week. No strenuous activity. Come back if you have any difficulty breathing. Thank you, doctor. When she left, Ava crossed her arms. You're not going home alone. I wasn't planning to. I mean it. You're coming to my apartment. Elena can help me watch you. I have a perfectly good penthouse, with no one to make sure you don't do something stupid. My apartment, non-negotiable. Marco's mouth twitched. You're bossy when you're worried. You're annoying when you're injured. Luca appeared with clothes. He looked worse than Marco, actually, guilt written all over his face. I should have seen them coming, Luca said. I should have been faster. You did fine, Marco cut him off. 4 professional fighters against 2 of us. The fact that I'm walking out of here is because you had my back. Still, Luca, let it go. They got Marco dressed and into a car. Ava sat close, watching him breathe, counting each one like proof he was still alive. Elena's face when they walked through the apartment door was priceless. What happened to him? Business meeting went badly, Ava said. He looks like he got hit by a truck. Close enough. Ava helped Marco to the couch. He's staying here for a few days. Elena looked between them. Do I want to know? Probably not, Marco said. Great, I'll make coffee. She disappeared into the kitchen. Ava sat next to Marco, careful not to jostle his ribs. Thank you, he said quietly. For what? For not running. For being here. He touched her face. I wouldn't blame you if you walked away. This is a lot. It is a lot. It's terrifying and complicated, and I still don't fully understand your world. Ava leaned into his hand. But I love you, and that matters more than being scared. Marco pulled her closer, kissed her carefully. I love you too, even though I'm terrible at showing it. You're learning. Elena returned with coffee and a first aid kit. Someone want to tell me what actually happened? So they did. The whole story. From the gallery kiss to the building project to Castellano's threats. Elena listened without interrupting, her expression shifting from shocked to concerned to resigned. You're both insane, she said when they finished. We've established that, Ava said. But you're also clearly in love, which is disgusting and kind of sweet. Elena set down her coffee. So what now? This Castellano guy isn't just going to go away. No, Marco agreed. But he made a mistake. He broke rules. That has consequences. What kind of consequences? The kind where his business associates suddenly find better opportunities elsewhere, where permits get delayed, where property deals fall through mysteriously. Marco's voice was calm, clinical. Castellano operates on reputation. When that reputation starts cracking, he loses power. You're going to destroy him, Ava said. I'm going to make him irrelevant. There's a difference. Is there? Destroying him would be easier, but it would start a war. Making him irrelevant just requires patience and the right pressure points. Marco shifted on the couch, wincing. Within 3 months, he'll be so busy trying to save his own interests that he'll forget this building exists. Elena shook her head. Your life is like a movie. A bad one, Marco said. Definitely bad, Ava agreed. But she was smiling, because Marco was alive, because he was here, because somehow, impossibly, they were making this work. The next week was strange. Marco actually rested, which Ava suspected was a first for him. She worked from the apartment, reviewing design details while he made phone calls and sent emails from the couch. Elena got used to having Marco around, even started to like him after he fixed her laptop and arranged for her job interview with a marketing firm that had been ignoring her applications. You didn't have to do that, Elena said. I made a phone call. They looked at your portfolio. They liked what they saw. Marco shrugged. The rest is up to you. Still, thank you. Me. By day 5, Marco was getting restless. His ribs were healing, the bruises fading. He wanted to return to work. The doctor said a week, Ava reminded him. The doctor was being cautious. The doctor was being smart. I'm fine, Ava. You winced when you stood up this morning. That was coincidence. That was pain. Sit down. Marco sat, but he looked mutinous about it. That afternoon, Francesca called. The building was nearly finished. They needed Ava's final approval on a few details before the grand reveal. When? Ava asked. Today, if possible. The photographer is coming tomorrow for the pre-marketing shots. Ava glanced at Marco. He was already reaching for his jacket. Don't even think about it, she said. I'm fine. You're injured. I'm bored. There's a difference. He stood carefully. Besides, I want to see it. The finished project. What you created. Ava wanted to argue, but the look in his eyes stopped her. This building mattered, not just as property, as memory, family, the thing that had brought them together. Fine, but if you tear something open, I'm telling the doctor you're a terrible patient. Noted. They took a car to the building. Late afternoon sun painted the old stone gold. Workers were packing up equipment. The construction phase was over. Now it was just details and finishing touches. Luca met them at the entrance. Boss, good to see you up. Good to be up. Marco clapped him on the shoulder. How does it look? See for yourself. They walked inside. Ava held her breath. The entrance hall gleamed, original frescoes clean and vibrant. New lighting that showcased every detail without overwhelming them. The marble staircase had been restored to its former glory. My God, Marco said quietly. They climbed to the ballroom, Ava's favorite space. The glass doors were installed, opening onto a balcony that overlooked the courtyard. Furniture in clean lines that complemented, rather than competed with the architecture. Art on the walls that felt both modern and timeless. The fountain in the courtyard ran clear water. Plants softened the stone. The whole space felt alive. Marco stood in the center of the ballroom, turning slowly, taking it all in. It's perfect, he said finally. It's not perfect. The crown molding in the library needs another coat of paint, and the bathroom tile. Ava, he turned to her. It's perfect. She saw it then. Emotion in his eyes, real, unguarded emotion. My grandmother would have loved this, he said. What you did. How you honored the history while making it new. His voice caught slightly. Thank you. Ava felt her throat tighten. You're welcome. They stood there in the ballroom as the sun set through the new glass doors, golden light washing over everything, making it magical. What are you going to do with it? Ava asked. The building. Live here. Make it a home instead of just a property. You're moving in? Why not? It's beautiful. It has history, and it reminds me of the woman who designed it. He pulled her closer, careful of his ribs. I was thinking the third floor could be an art studio, for someone who might want space to work. Ava's heart skipped. Someone? You. If you wanted, your own space, separate from mine but connected. He was choosing his words carefully. I'm not asking you to move in. Not yet, but maybe eventually. When you're ready. It was too fast, too much. They'd known each other for 3 months, but Ava looked around the ballroom, at the space she'd created, at the building that had brought them together, and felt like she'd been heading toward this moment since that first impulsive kiss. I'd like that, she said. Eventually. Marco's smile was real, unguarded. Eventually. They kissed in the empty ballroom as the city came alive with lights outside. Later, Ava realized this was the moment. Not the kiss at the gallery, not the first night together. This, standing in a space they'd created together, choosing each other despite all the reasons not to. The next month was a whirlwind. The building made headlines in design magazines. Ava's phone didn't stop ringing with new clients. Francesca offered her a permanent position at her firm. Castellano disappeared from Milan. Quietly. Completely. Marco never explained exactly what happened. Ava didn't ask. Elena got the marketing job, found her own apartment, cried when Ava helped her move. You're sure about this? Elena asked, gesturing at the boxes. Moving in with Marco? I'm terrified, but yes. He's good to you? He's complicated and sometimes infuriating, but he loves me. Ava smiled. And I love him. That's enough. Elena hugged her tight. Be happy. You deserve it. Moving into the building felt surreal. Ava had designed every inch of it, but living there was different. Waking up to the courtyard fountain, working in her studio on the 3rd floor, sharing space with Marco and learning his routines. He was tidy, almost obsessive about it, but he left coffee for her every morning, remembered how she took it without asking, learned to read her moods and when to give her space. They fought sometimes, about work, about his business, about the fact that he still kept parts of his world separate. But they always came back together, always talked it through. 6 months after moving in, Marco took her on a trip. Wouldn't say where, just packed bags and drove south. They ended up in a small coastal town. Beautiful, quiet, the kind of place tourists hadn't discovered yet. This is where I grew up, Marco said as they walked along the beach. Before Milan, before everything got complicated. He showed her his childhood home, the school he'd attended, the restaurant where his father had taught him about business over pasta and wine. My father wasn't a good man, Marco said as they sat on the beach watching sunset. He built an empire through intimidation and violence. When he died, I had a choice, continue his legacy or create my own. What did you choose? Both, neither. Something in between. He picked up a handful of sand, let it fall through his fingers. I use his methods sometimes, but I try to be better, more strategic, less violent. You're nothing like him, Ava said. How do you know? You never met him. Because you feel guilty about the violence. You protect people you care about. You bought a building for sentimental reasons. She took his hand. Your father wouldn't have done any of that. Marco looked at her for a long moment. Then he reached into his pocket. I brought you here for a reason, he said. Ava's heart started pounding. Marco pulled out a small box, opened it. Inside was a ring, simple, elegant, a single diamond that caught the fading light. I'm not good at this, he said. The romantic gestures, the pretty words. But I know that I love you. I know that my life is better with you in it. I know that when I think about the future, you're in every version of it. Ava's eyes were burning. I can't promise perfect, Marco continued. I can't promise easy. My world is complicated and sometimes dangerous. But I can promise honesty, loyalty. A man who will spend the rest of his life trying to deserve you. He took a breath. Marry me, Ava. Build a life with me. Have a family with me. Choose me, even though I'm difficult and controlling and probably going to drive you crazy. Ava was crying now, full tears streaming down her face. Yes, she managed. Yes to all of it. Marco slid the ring on her finger, kissed her as the sun set over the Mediterranean. It wasn't perfect. The sand was getting everywhere. They were both emotional messes. But it was real, completely, undeniably real. They married 3 months later. Small ceremony, just close friends. Elena as maid of honor, Luca as best man. Francesca crying in the front row. The building's courtyard was the venue. The fountain Marco's grandmother had loved running clear and bright. Flowers everywhere. String lights turning everything magical. "I can't believe you're actually doing this," Elena whispered before the ceremony. "Me neither," Ava admitted. "Are you scared?" "Terrified." "Good. That means it's real." Ava walked down the aisle to a man who'd started as a stranger, who'd become her project, her complication, her love. Marco waited at the altar looking nervous. Actually nervous. His control finally cracking. When she reached him, he took her hands. "You look beautiful," he said. "You look terrified." "I am. You?" "Same." The officiant started talking, words about love and commitment and choosing each other daily. Ava barely heard it. She was too focused on Marco, on the way he was looking at her like she was the only thing that mattered. They said their vows. Simple ones. Honest ones. Promises they could actually keep. When they kissed, the small crowd erupted in applause. But Ava didn't hear that either. She was too busy kissing her husband. Her husband. The words felt surreal and perfect at the same time. The reception was in the ballroom. Dancing and wine and laughter that echoed off frescoed ceilings. Marco held her close, swaying to music, whispering things that made her blush. "I never thought I'd have this," he said. "Someone to share everything with. You're stuck with me now." "Good. I don't want unstuck." They danced until late, then disappeared to the penthouse level that was now their home, their space, the life they'd built together. "Mrs. DeLuca," Marco said, testing the name. "I'm keeping Carter professionally." "I know, but let me enjoy this for a moment." Ava laughed, kissed him. Let him carry her to bed despite his protests about his ribs being fully healed. They made love slowly, carefully, like they had all the time in the world. Afterward, lying tangled together, Ava traced patterns on Marco's chest. "What are you thinking?" he asked. "That I kissed a stranger at a gallery to make a point, and somehow that turned into this." "Regrets?" "Not even a little." "Good. Because I'm never letting you go." "Promises, promises." He pulled her closer. "I mean it, Ava. You're mine. I'm yours. That's not changing." She believed him. For the first time in her life, she believed completely in something this big and terrifying and wonderful. A year later, Ava found out she was pregnant. She told Marco in his courtyard. Their courtyard, where the fountain ran and flowers bloomed and everything had started coming together. "You're sure?" he asked, voice barely above a whisper. 3 tests, sure. Marco sat down hard on the fountain edge, looked up at her with complete vulnerability. "I don't know how to be a father," he said. "Mine was terrible. What if I'm terrible?" Ava sat next to him, took his hand. "You won't be, because you're already worried about it, because you care, because you're nothing like him." "How do you know?" "Because I know you, the real you, not the businessman or the strategist, the man who bought a building for sentimental reasons, who fixed my roommate's computer, who leaves me coffee every morning." She placed his hand on her still flat stomach. "That's the father our child is getting, and that's more than enough." Marco's eyes were wet. He pulled her close, buried his face in her neck. "I'm terrified," he whispered. "Me too. We'll figure it out together." The pregnancy was not easy. Morning sickness that lasted all day. Cravings that made no sense. Mood swings that had Marco walking on eggshells. But he was there, every doctor's appointment, every late-night craving run, every moment she needed him. "You're good at this," Ava said one night, watching him assemble a crib. "At furniture assembly?" "At being a partner. At showing up." Marco set down his tools. "You make it easy." "I'm currently crying over a pasta commercial. I don't make anything easy." "You make loving you easy. That's what matters." Their son was born on a rainy Tuesday in October. 7 pounds, 3 ounces, perfect fingers and toes, dark hair like his father. Marco held him with shaking hands, stared at his face like he'd been given something precious and fragile. "Hi," Marco whispered. "I'm your dad. I'm probably going to mess this up sometimes, but I'm going to try really hard not to." Ava watched from the hospital bed, exhausted and overwhelmed and completely in love. With her son, with her husband, with the impossible life they'd built. "What should we name him?" Marco asked. They discussed options but never decided. Now, looking at their son, Ava knew. "Alessandro," she said, "after the architect who designed the building." Marco smiled. "Alessandro De Luca Carter. That's a mouthful. He'll grow into it." They brought Alessandro home to the building, to the courtyard and the fountain and the space that had brought his parents together. Luca cried when he met him. Elena brought so many gifts that their apartment looked like a toy store. The first few months were chaos, sleepless nights, endless crying, learning to be parents on the fly. But they figured it out, together. Ava watched Marco transform. The controlled businessman became a father who made silly faces to earn giggles, who sang terrible lullabies, who fell asleep with Alessandro on his chest, both of them breathing in sync. "I love watching you with him," Ava said one night. Marco looked up from feeding Alessandro. "Yeah? You're gentle with him, patient, everything you try to hide from the rest of the world. He's easy to be gentle with. He's perfect. He spit up on you twice today. Still perfect." Alessandro grew, started crawling, then walking, turned the apartment into a disaster zone of toys and chaos. Marco complained but never really minded. He'd built his empire on control, but he'd learned to let go for his son, for his family. On Alessandro's second birthday, they threw a party in the courtyard. Friends, family, the people who'd become their community. Ava stood with Marco, watching their son destroy cake with enthusiastic messiness. "Remember when this was just a project?" she said. "Barely. Feels like a lifetime ago." "It does." She leaned into him. "I'm glad I kissed you." "So am I." Marco kissed her temple. Best impulsive decision either of us ever made. Elena appeared with more cake. "Your kid is covered in frosting." "That's the point of birthday cake," Marco said. "Fair enough." Elena smiled. "You guys look happy." "We are," Ava said. And it was true. Not perfect. Never perfect. They still fought, still had hard days. Marco's business still had complications. Ava's work still stressed her out. Alessandro was entering the terrible twos with enthusiasm, but they were happy. Really, truly happy. That night, after Alessandro was asleep and the party was cleaned up, Ava and Marco sat in the courtyard. The fountain ran softly. Stars were visible between buildings. "Do you ever regret it?" Ava asked. "This life, the choices you made." Marco thought about it. "I regret some of the things I did before you. The violence, the shortcuts, the people I hurt." He took her hand. "But I don't regret anything that led me to you. To this. Even getting beat up by Castellano's thugs? Even that. Because it taught me that some things are worth fighting for, worth getting hurt for." He looked at her. "You taught me that love isn't weakness, it's strength." Ava felt tears prick her eyes. "You're getting sentimental in your old age." "I'm 37. Ancient." He pulled her closer. "I love you, Ava De Luca Carter." "I love you too, Marco De Luca." They sat in silence, listening to the fountain. The same fountain his grandmother had loved. The same courtyard where they'd shared their first real conversation about the building. Where he'd proposed, where they'd married, where their son now played. Everything had led to this moment. Every choice, every mistake, every impulsive decision, and Ava wouldn't change a single thing. Because this was their story, not perfect, not safe, not simple, but completely, undeniably theirs. And that was more than enough.